till we do something for Golden Country and go back to work. That's a good one right there. I'm gonna kick her butt. Say, can you threaten to kick me in a funnier way? From dominating reality TV shows for over 10 years to the dark secrets hidden behind the pawn shop counter getting exposed, this is the untold story of Pawn Stars and Rick Harrison's confession. The family-run business built on the knowledge of the history of gold and silver has recently been drowning in a series of controversial allegations, scandals, lawsuits, and family betrayals that threaten to end, if not permanently taint, their legacy. With all that has been happening, Rick Harrison's empire has been pushed to the edge and might end up falling. What was once a humble pawn shop had led its owners to fame, greed, and legal chaos. But where does their story begin? A pawn shop empire built on knowledge of gold and silver. At the center of it all was Richard Old Man Harrison, the 77-year-old patriot who co-founded the pawn shop in Las Vegas. His experience in the business, combined with his no-nonsense attitude, made him a fan favorite and, obviously, the one to call the shots. However, his death in 2018 marked a turning point for the family, both personally and professionally. Rick Harrison, the brains behind the shop's TV success, knew from the beginning that pawning was about more than just making quick sales. Connected to it, it's got to have a story. Everyone loves a story. I mean, like, if you take any really expensive antique, someone that sells at Christie's for $1 million, you're buying the story. With a basic knowledge of gold and silver, he built the gold and silver pawn shop from the ground up. Even though in the early days making a profit was tough, often Rick found himself lending more money than he was earning. Regardless, he pushed through, expanding his expertise and becoming a trusted name in the pawn industry. However, the real game changer came in 2009 when Pawn Stars debuted on the History Channel. The show followed Rick, his father, his son Corey Big Hoss Harrison, and Corey's friend Austin Chumlee Russell as they interacted with the unusual and sometimes priceless items brought into the shop. Customers brought all sorts of stuff, including rare comic books and artifacts believed to be from ancient Egypt. For this reason, no day was ever the same at the pawn shop. This was good as it kept the experience unpredictable and interesting. Besides that, the fans loved the banter between Rick and his father, as well as Chumlee's goofy, kind of naive personality. But as the show became more famous, nasty business was going on behind the scenes. Rick Harrison's legal battle with his mother. According to USA Today, Rick's mother Joanne Harrison is suing her son in a dispute over family assets and the ownership of the gold and silver pawn shop. I had no idea, Rick explained. Because like I said, I had epilepsy, and back then there's no research on it or anything like that. You thought you had limitations. Oh no, I thought I had a really limited lifespan. But that's just a tip. Joanne's attorneys filed a civil lawsuit in Nevada State Court. The lawsuit names Rick Harrison, the gold and silver pawn shop business entities, Harrison Properties, Joher Properties, and others as defendants. The complaint cites a breach of contract, stating that Joanne was married to Rick's father for 58 years. However, when she was hospitalized in the early 2000s, just after she'd awoken from a coma, Rick had her assign her 51% interest in the pawn shop over to him. After realizing what she had done, or was made to do, she fought back and sought justice by claiming that she didn't fully understand what she was signing in her condition. Then in 2018, when Richard died, Joanne was to inherit his 49% share of the pawn shop. But Rick hadn't provided her with complete documentation of the business's finances. For this reason, Joanne alleged that she hadn't been able to get proper accounting for more than $500,000 worth of cash and silver. According to her, the late Richard accumulated those things before his death. Following this legal battle, Rick's net worth was threatened. This is because the lawsuit seeks unspecified damages, an accounting of assets, a court order banning Rick from using funds belonging to Joanne, and a constructive trust over property that belongs to her. Talking to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Rick claimed that the allegations were false and suggested that his 81-year-old mother was being manipulated by others for their personal gain, financial fallout, and a restraining order. Yet that was not the only bomb that dropped on the family business. According to the Daily Mail, in 2020 the gold and silver pawn shop, which usually accumulates over $1 million annually, only made $1,374.76 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This hit them hard, but the legal drama did not stop there. Rick's mother went ahead and filed a restraining order. According to the Daily Mail, Joanne's temporary restraining order against Pawn Stars Rick was to prevent him from selling off the family's assets. In her defense, Joanne claimed that Rick had stopped sending her money from Richard's share of the business. At first, Rick had been giving her regular $225,000 payments, but stopped in 2020. Depression, one of the biggest signs of depression is being angry all the time. That's definitely you. Loss of hair, dude. You might have had menopause for like 10 years. You might be the longest known case of menopause. For this reason, Joanne filed for a restraining order in an attempt to have that allowance reinstated through the courts. On top of that, the restraining order would also stop Rick from transferring or concealing cash, assets, or performing any other actions that would diminish Joanne's interest in the family's business. Additionally, the publication also reported that Joanne was, by then, 81 years old and suffered from many health issues that required 24-hour care and supervision, which could cost up to $115,000 a month. What shocked Rick was that he found out about the restraining order request through news reports and not directly from Joanne. Following this incident, Rick claimed to have tried to reach her numerous times for several months, but could not reach her, making it harder for him to negotiate better terms so that everyone could go home happy, even though they wouldn't go back to the same home. Chumlee's legal troubles. But this was not the only legal battle a member of the family, or at least a friend, was facing. Austin Chumlee Russell is definitely one of the shadiest of the Pawn Stars cast. As TMZ reported, in 2012, he was caught on camera brawling with a dude in Hollywood before fleeing the scene. The victim was left bruised and bleeding on the side of the road, but Chumlee insisted he acted in self-defense after the guy threatened to pull a gun on him and his pals. According to Chumlee, instinct just took over, and the man didn't even know that Chumlee was on TV. Speaking to TMZ, Chumlee said the stranger just wanted to ride in their car and start problems. While he dodged a bullet with that one, there was no excusing the scandal Chumlee was about to find himself in 4 years later. According to the Chicago Tribune, in 2016 Chumlee landed in jail after being arrested on suspicion of 20 felonies. Well, he actually learned something. Let me say, you get more out of a book, Rick. You like to binge argue. I don't like to binge argue. You guys turn it into arguments. No, you like to binge argue for sure. And I bet one of your 3 wives could agree. The arrest occurred after cops raided his house as part of their investigation into sexual assault accusations that had been made against him. During the police raid, the officers allegedly found methamphetamine, marijuana, and at least 1 gun at Chumlee's home in southwest Las Vegas. While Chumlee wasn't booked on sex crime allegations, Officer Larry Hadfield, a department spokesman, said that part of the investigation was due to a recent complaint by a woman and that the officers were doing everything in their power to get to the truth. However, according to TMZ reports, Chumlee was a suspect in the sexual assault case. The AP report cites Clark County Detention Center's records, saying that Russell faced 19 drug possession charges and 1 weapon charge. After some time, the sexual assault charges were ultimately cleared, but the damage had already been done, and he was not getting off the hook that easily. Chumlee faced a new legal nightmare thanks to what was uncovered during the raid. According to TMZ, the cops had seized a huge laundry list of narcotics including weed, meth, and Xanax. On top of that, they also discovered traces of cocaine and 12 guns, 8 of which were unregistered. Seeing that he was compromised, Chumlee ultimately entered a plea to escape a prison sentence. He pleaded guilty to a felony weapon charge, unlawful possession of a firearm, and to a gross misdemeanor of attempted drug possession. He was in hot soup. Corey Harrison's wild nights and personal troubles. But he wasn't the only one. Rick's son, Corey Big Hoss Harrison, also had his share of misadventures. Loss of hair, dude. You might have had menopause for like 10 years. You might be the longest known case of menopause. Known for his ambition to take over the shop one day, Corey faced a rough patch when reports surfaced of his wild behavior during a stop on a motorcycle tour in Jefferson City. Corey was involved in an embarrassing incident at a bar called Spectators after what witnesses described as a week of heavy drinking. Corey shocked patrons by urinating in public and throwing a bar stool, resulting in him being kicked out of the bar. This incident drew negative attention, though Corey later expressed regret for his actions, issuing a public apology. While he tried his best to clear his reputation using his charm, more trouble kept following him. Corey came back making headlines again in 2021 for all the wrong reasons. According to TMZ, Big Hoss rented an RV for a short vacation in the California desert in 2020. However, according to the vehicle's owner, William I. Harrison, Corey failed to return the RV on the agreed date and in one piece. The man claimed that Harrison's assistant called a day later to say they were involved in an accident and were going to have the RV towed back. But it took another 2 days before the totally wrecked vehicle finally arrived. In addition to the bodywork damage expected from a crash, he alleged that the RV's awning had been ripped off and that the interior was littered with empty bottles and eggs, among other things. It sounded like one hell of a crash. According to TMZ, the owner estimated that the damage would cost up to $30,000 to repair. Additionally, he alleged that he had to cancel 10 reservations because of the vehicle's state. He also claimed that Harrison refused to pay for the damages, forcing him to file a police report. Seeing the media attention this was drawing, Corey's representative tried to brush it off by saying that Corey had rented the RV, the pop-outs wouldn't go back in, and it was not drivable. That is the only statement he made to TMZ. He insisted that Corey had the RV towed back to Las Vegas and had insurance handle it. With his resources, Corey managed to legally escape the consequences of the accusations, but his public image was stained, and his legal problems were the least of his worries. In his personal life, Corey had to battle his weight, which had reached dangerous levels, leading him to undergo gastric bypass surgery in 2010. The surgery helped him lose over 100 pounds, but the personal strain remained. Corey continued to deal with the pressures of fame, managing the pawn shop, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. His friendship with Chumlee remained intact, and Chumlee, inspired by Corey, also began a weight loss journey. At least he had his good times, but trouble was far from over.